and we are live and professional as always. We really need a fancy introduction music like everybody else has, don't we?
We do.
Yeah, the Real 2028 jingle's quite nice, isn't it?
I know, we don't have one of them.
So,
Welcome to episode 2 of the Council of War, Northern Kings Presents. You'll notice today that we don't have Nick with us, which means that you've got me controlling the buttons. So if anyone's seen a Dash Entry 8 live stream that I've hosted, you know this is going to go remarkably well. And definitely not going to be an issue at all. I'm Elliot Morris. With me today we have Mr. Tom Robinson, Mr. Adam Padley, who may or may not be upside down, depending on whose screen you're looking at.
No, I'm right way around.
Apparently he's upside down to Tom's screen and the right way up on mine.
It's happened before, it's fine.
So who knows?
Must be region up to Australia, I think, is right.
Switch the region over to Australia and now is the wrong way around. I believe it. We're coming to you live from sunny Yorkshire. It's currently about 8 degrees and chucking it down.
It has for the last week.
And has for a week, yeah. We had a glorious few weeks, and now it's reverted back to British summertime. Yes. So, without further ado, we'll start where we did last week with a hobby update. See, I wasn't going to do a hobby update this time because Nick isn't here to do his, and Adam and Tom have not done any hobby this week. But I've done something, damn it, for a change, so I'm going to show it off. I've done elves. Ooh. Look at the elves. Actual Mantic elves. Full model camp Mantic elves, no less.
I didn't even know Mantic made their models, you know.
They're really nice models. The only issue I've got with them is that they look nothing like the elf spearmen, which I actually don't mind either. But you would never know they're the same range when you look at them.
Really?
Yeah. So like these are nice models. The spearmen are okay models, but they're just not the same range in the slightest.
They're quite Easterling-like, aren't they?
I really like these models. They're nice. I think they look like the classic style monopose, but there's enough difference in them, and they're really easy to work with. But yeah, they're just. If all the range looked like this, I'd be happy. But they don't.
Ian Sturgis says we should have had him on. That'd have been good.
Not too late.
Yeah, but yes, look at my bases. I'm liking my bases. They're shiny.
No, the bases look really good when I like that, mate.
I followed Nick's guide to the letter, and this happened.
Nice.
Turns out Nick knows what he's talking about, and if you just do what he says.
It's almost like he's done it before, and he will compulsively rebase his entire army on a whim.
Well, he doesn't rebase his army, he just makes a brand new army.
Yeah.
Doesn't bother rebasing them. To be honest, it's probably good that I don't have Nick's hobby update here, because we'd be here for a while, because he's just finished another army. So I'd have to go through all of that again. Because the boy is an absolute machine.
Yeah.
So this is our one and only hobby update. Hope you enjoy it.
If you see that there, I've done the entire house and it's an absolute nightmare. That one there doesn't actually work. One of them doesn't work. That means the other ones don't work as well. Don't know how I've done it.
This is Tom playing at a Sparky.
I can't see anything going wrong doing your own electrical wiring.
Wow.
Badly.
No, I'm going badly wrong. That's it.
Yeah, nothing so far.
That's it. I'm happy.
And Adam's fainted defence.
Yeah.
So onto our actual.
Small enough. If it's small enough, then it counts.
It's fucking massive fence, mate.
The actual content, seeing as no one really cares about looking at my elves or my bases, this week is called Staring into the Abyss. So we were looking at all different things that we could do for episode topics, and we wanted to stick to the idea of all four of us bring something each. And one of the things we looked at is different armies that some armies have got very particular builds or just one or two viable builds, and some armies have got the option to go absolutely crazy with. We wanted to avoid undead because we didn't want to spend the entire hour just moaning. So we went with Forces of the Abyss because they really are an army that you can build in lots and lots of different ways. So we all went away, we all wrote a list without talking to each other beforehand or consulting on what units we thought were good. And we've put them all together, we've brought them back, and these lists are really supposed to reflect our particular play styles.
Yeah.
We'll talk here about why we chose them, briefly about how we think it might play together, and then in the next episode we'll actually show a sort of a deployment map of how we would deploy the list, how we'd recommend using it, and a few examples of how that might change based on our opponents. So without further ado, we're starting with me. So I have 3 regiments of Abyssal Horsemen, one with the Brew of Sharpness, one with Blessing of the Gods, and one with Chant of Hate. So all 3 of them are very, very punchy. I've got 2 regiments of Abyssal Ghouls. I have 2 Gargoyle Troops. I've got 2 Abyssal Fiends, 3 Tortured Soul regiments, 1 Abyssal Warlock with the Veil of Shadows, the Seductress with Boots of the Seven Leagues, so she scouts, and the Abyssal Champion with Wings and Mournful Blade for Duelist. So I'll go through it in a minute, but first impressions, what do you 2 think?
Nice, all right. It's fast list. Abyssals can take.
It's all right. What do you mean it's all right? It's amazing.
Well, it's fast approaching it to Abyssals, basically. So you've got a lot of speed 8+ in there. Two flying individuals, 1 that scouts, which is amazing. Get behind, shut war machines down, shooting hordes down like Tom demonstrated on Dash 28 thing, live video. Mm-hmm. And the Abyssal Champion with the Mournful Blade is fantastic.
Yeah, really is.
It means that you, well, even anything really, your wizards, your battle standard bearers, your guy with loot, they have to be really scared. Even living legends, there's a lot of living legends that would scare the shitless out of something an Abyssal Champ coming in.
Well, the Seductress also has Duelist.
Yeah.
So you can either completely shut down an enemy's individuals, or you can double up into one and take off Vampire Lords in one go.
I'm guessing the Abyssal Warlock is literally just to shut down a bit of war machine spam for your horses.
Yeah.
That's
completely,
literally
yeah.
it.
So the Warlock's there for an inspiring source that sits with Horsemen. The shooting's nice, but he's also another bit of unit strength because there's a lot of hammers and quite fast hammers. The Fiends are, fairly,
Speed 7, they're good.
Fairly brickish. But the Warlock really is there just to, like you say, to try and get Veil of Shadows up to avoid some war machines, because the Horsemen are only 14, 16, and so they're quite susceptible to getting shot off by war engines.
Yeah, not normal shooting is not really an issue for them because there's not enough damage output from normal shooting. Realistically,
not in one turn. Not with regen. And
then it's the war machines that can do the 1-2 punch and take them off. So the Veil of Shadows is a nice shout for them.
The ghouls are literally there to sit at the back of the board as objective holders.
Yeah, objective holders. Gargoyles are gargoyles.
You say that, but Abyssal Ghouls are really good thick chaff.
They're really good chaff. They're 14, 16 defense 4.
They are cheap and they last.
Yeah. They're really, really good. They're just better versions of like Men at Arms, which I'm used to playing.
And
Men at Arms are really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the unlock that makes them really good, to be honest with you. For more than 90 points or something stupid for a regiment.
The ghouls, yeah. Yeah, they're very good. The 3 Tortured Souls are there really just to, I think, as you were saying in the Tom v Tom game, Adam, they're there to ask questions. So you've got so many things that can just scatter across the board. You've got hammers that can come forward and from the sides, and fiends that can join in, and then the Tortured Souls are cheap enough that I don't really care about losing them. But then they can spread out. They can give flanks up. They can work with the individuals to shield the individuals as they move up, or they can just tap into combats. They're just there to be a pain, really.
Thick chaff again.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the thick chaff is a lot of this army is chaff, really, and then it all revolves around those 3 horsemen regiments. The horsemen with the Brew of Sharpness can. The fiends are support pieces, really, in this list. They're inspiring, which is wonderful. If you can get them into the flank, they do wonderful. But they're really, really thick chaff. So they'll go into something, they'll hold it up for a turn, and then the horsemen will arrive and finish it off. Or they'll hold it up for a turn and Tortured Souls will then flank it in the next turn.
It's very MMU-y, isn't it, really? Many mixed.
It is, except that you've then got the horsemen, which are probably, I would say, a bit more than medium. But
yeah, that's what I'm on about.
It's MMU with some real hammers in it. I think the horsemen.
It's like a hybrid MMU.
Yeah. It's a nice list. I like it. It's my sort of style of list. I like lots of little flyers and lots of units, and I like having some really punchy hammers. I've been running Brew of Sharpness, Blessing of the Gods, Horseman with my Twilight Kin. I'm loving them.
Going back to the questions you were about, that asks a big question on can the opponent actually deal with this in time? Because your list actually doesn't mind playing the long game to get the positioning right, to get the double, triple charges set
Yeah.
in place. Whereas if you're a slow army, like foot dwarfs or something stupid, you're not going to be able to stop this list getting where you need it to get.
No, exactly. I mean, it's got all the chaff it is, hasn't it, to put
Yeah.
itself in positions where it wants to be. And
got a
you can actually
deceiving
wait
amount
to get
of-
your champions and your seductress behind the behind the lines.
Yeah, it's got a deceiving amount of shots as well when you start looking at the 20 fireball from both fiends, and then the few shots from the Abyssal Warlock, which can't be underestimated. So it can actually remove
especially
your
when that thing
opponent's
can.
chaff.
Yeah, especially when it can sit on an objective, that Warlock, if it wants to. That's what I really like about that unit. It just does a bit of everything.
I assume the ghouls are in a regiment. You got
two go. Oh yeah, I haven't typed that bit. Yeah, two Abyssal Ghoul regiments. I just think it's a no-brainer. If you've got those really cheap infantry units that you can take, there's 180 points invested into that, and those 180 points will probably win you the game at some point.
Yeah, 100%.
Because they're a zoning control, they're a token you push across the board, they're a.
You get ignored.
What's hilarious about this list is something like push, where you put one of the Ghoul regiments right on the opposite end, and then put your entire rest of your army on the other flank, and you just wander across, and you dare them to go for the ghouls, and you've got everything looking at that flank.
Yeah, if you do it early, your opponent will have to put something to match them. Depending on your opponent, it has to be actual combat units, so you're a hammer up essentially.
Yeah.
And the one downside I can see to the list is, as you say, the Abyssal Horsemen are only 14, 16. So they are susceptible to the waiver, but obviously the waiver is not an issue.
They've got Fury. It's a bit of an issue for shooting. We lost Adam.
Yeah, we'll carry on.
He'll carry on, yeah. Maybe he's just sat really still. One issue I do think with this list is it doesn't have any lightning bolt already shooting beyond 12 inches. Well, it's got the 18 inches for the firebolt. But anything that comes at it with a lot of its own chaff could be a bit of an issue. But yeah, apart from that, I really like this list. It fits my style a lot. I think it uses the strongest stuff in the Abyssal army. But yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
If you're looking for, say, weaknesses for it really struggle with stuff which outzones it. So if you're looking at another flyer list, something with 1 or 2 dragons in there, something with a couple more heavy flyers, like say an elf list with 2 dragons, they're thinking, those dragons can one-shot an Abyssal Horseman regiment, and there's not much you do to protect it because it outzones your torch and soul, so you're relying on your individuals to do that work. But elves and they're going to pick off your seductress and shit like that.
That's why I doubled up on the individuals, but I know what you mean. That speed 8 is very different to speed 10 with the torch and souls.
Yeah, it's huge.
It preys upon your weakness to lightning bolt. It preys upon the low nerves you've normally got. And it's quick, but it's not quite quick enough to take a proper alpha kind of army. So it requires a lot of careful play using your ghouls to screen the horsemen, slowing you down a little bit, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good job that I'm an excellent player and could just get around all those weaknesses. I would take this list and then just get torn apart when I think it's the fastest thing in the world and something quicker comes along. Just rips me to shreds. But,
like my Basileans, for example, could be quite good against this.
Yeah, essentially, I'd say lots of flyers. I think you're right. Is the things that can outspeed it, and then because a lot of it is one-shottable. Torch souls are.
What's your highest crushing apart from the fiends? Is it crushing 1 or 2 on the horseman?
2. It's crush 1.
Crush 2 thunderous 1. Sorry, crush 1 thunderous 1. Yeah. So.
And the Abyssal Fiends are only 7 attacks, melee, 3 crush 2 vicious with brutal.
Yeah.
They're good.
So potentially def 6 or really high def fearless stuff with
Abyssal Dwarves are an issue.
Yeah.
Abyssal Dwarves are an issue. Some undead builds could cause this from right trouble, but yeah, I think that's about it. Good list, I like it.
I do. Right. Moving on.
You wrote it, you know you'd like it.
I do like it, yeah. But I agree. But I think it's worth saying that I don't play Abyssals. So this was me looking at the list, starting from what I know I like, which is the Horseman, because I use them with Twilight Kin, And I know that I like playing lots of things that can put pressure on different flanks at once and make my opponent think. This is the kind of list I think would work a lot better on the tabletop than Universal Battle.
100%.
Because you can throw it up quite quickly, you can ask questions, and you can make your opponent use their clock and wind the time down.
Me looking at this, if I were using this list, if I were just given this to go play with, I'd be trying to force my opponent to not see a flank, give him too many angles to deal with. So, because a torture soul regiment in the flank is scary. You've got enough fast stuff there that you can make your opponent have to double, triple, quad check angles, do everything. So you could actually play it as a slow play army as well, which sounds awful in this game, but it's true.
No, well, it's not slow play, but it's forcing so many options that your opponent either has to make a mistake or use all their time up.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. It's making your opponent play slow on their clock.
Yeah. Even gargoyle troops in the flank really aren't terrible.
Yeah, nothing can be discounted there. They're all solid units in what they do.
7 flyers can't go wrong.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
Well, that's it.
Yeah, Ian's just said like a game on UB to a game in real life, completely different games, and I 100% agree with that. 100% agree.
I agree. UB is fantastic and it serves its purpose and it's done wonders while we're all locked down, but they're very different games.
Yeah.
Right. Moving on. Tom, you're up.
Yep. So this is something I've actually ran before on UB actually, and I play Abyssals regularly anyway. I've got an actual Abyssal army, so I've got most of the stuff to actually run this, apart from the Molochs and the Fiends, which are symptomatic of Universal Battle, as you can probably tell, since I've got 4. So from the top, 3 troops of Flame Bearers. Know what these guys are. You don't see much of them these days. I think they were very undervalued in 2nd edition.
Oh yeah, very.
At a really good regiment level, good points, great nerve, regen. The kind of thing that you couldn't discount them. They'll sit there and they'll score, they'll shoot, they'll move, they can even fight in a pinch as well. But they've changed a lot now with them being irregular. You don't really see them because they're an important unlock. So you use the unlocks, like their characters did everything. Their actual units were a bit lackluster. Well, I won't say that, but the characters were the interesting bit of the Abyssal list. I think that's swapped around a bit now.
I agree.
Brought in, I think it's swapped quite a lot. Moving on to that, Molochs, 4 thereof, no upgrades.
Yeah, I noticed that you often don't take the upgrade.
I think it's a trap. So, Sacrificial Lift is something which was billed as a broken faction ability. Because, oh man, you can reroll you for 15 points. Yeah. Well, if you're up to 12 damage, something's probably gone fairly wrong. And if you're doing that, you roll it first, you get 4 back. You're down to 8, you roll it again, you get 2 back. You might get 3. But that's 15 points.
I don't think it's worth it. I don't think it's worth it. 100% agree with that.
I think it's crap. Anything other than the lower Abyssal Horde, it's a trap and it's a waste of points. It could do with either being cheaper or rewording the terms for which you use it. Oh hell, just lower it down to regen 4+.
Yeah, just put +1 to your regen that turn or something.
And then drop it down to like 5 points for a troop, 10 points for a regiment or whatever.
It's an upgrade that's too expensive, and that is a trap as well. You use it, yeah.
What about the Despoiler champion then?
Yeah, I also think that's also a bit of a trap. That's 20 odd points, and you're going up to Fearless, which is only useful for shooting, really.
Practically +2 nerve, that's all it is.
And you get Brutal, which is all right, but you mean you've got Fury anyway. If you're putting that on 2 or 3 hordes, that's 40 odd points for something where 1 unit might use it. I'd rather save 80 odd points here for free Gargoyle troop or whatever. You know? But yeah, these guys are great. These are I don't know if they're my preferred mainline unit for Abyssals. I love Succubi. Succubi are great, and they're now at a decent price point where they're competitive now. But the problem with Succubi, as I'm sure we'll get into later on, is they are very susceptible to Lightning Bolt. Their nerve is low, and instead and they get very expensive once you put Pathfinder upgrade on them, which you kind of want to do. But you want to put Shank on them, all that kind of crap. Whereas Morlocks, as they are, they're solid, they do the job, and they're spot on. You can't argue
you don't need to give Morlocks an upgrade at all. You don't have to buy many items. You can just buy them as they are at 210 points.
225.
205 for a horde.
That's very, very good.
Yeah.
For
I mean,
18 melee 3 attacks.
16-18 with Fury is huge, isn't it? Because you're, as you say, your only issue there is shooting, of which you're not seeing masses of anymore, and you've got Veil of Shadows in there to mitigate some of that.
That's the way. Yeah.
Thing is,
Yeah.
shooting on mass ain't worth it anymore. Just didn't.
So after that, 3 Abyssal Fiends. These guys do the
Everything.
It's almost like you can see a couple more Fiends later on because they are the best thing in the list.
Yeah.
These guys are really good because they inspire, and they'd be good if they didn't.
They're at least 25 points undercosted.
They are.
Oh, more than 25 points undercosted. Way more than 25 points undercosted.
They work really well. This kind of army, when I ran it before, and you can have Moloch Abyssal Fiend, and that can be your deployment side out in your head, no problem. You don't have to worry about if you took Succubi. You don't have to worry about thinking, but put the Succubi down here. He's going to put his lightning bolt opposing it. If it's all the same thing, deployment's really easy. You don't have to worry about that, but you've got to think about the big thing where you vanguarded, scouting, search goes and that kind of stuff. Yeah, Fiend's great. They inspire. They've got a ton of nerve. They do an alright amount of attacks, and they shoot. 30 fireball is not to be underestimated, and it means the opponent casts it just at a range of the Moloch cards or thing. So you mitigate your speed 6 somewhat. And if anybody goes for an Abyssal Fiend, it's offset by Moloch card either side because of how you're going to lay it out. You can't just kill him because he's not easy to kill, but it also means you're setting up flanks and such. So it's one of them ones, like Paddy said, it asks a lot of questions. You've got to really think about how you're going to pick this apart. So for characters, Abyssal Warlock, he does the job of inspiring where the Abyssal Fiends need to run off, and also protecting me from a bit of shooting where you need to. This doesn't like getting shot by siege engines. Siege engines will do a lot of damage. So just turning up, turn one and going, there you go, have fun with that. That's the job he does. Can't argue with it. And the shooting, great. Playing into that, another Abyssal Warlock, same job. So when the Fiends have to run off, he can fill in. And he's got Bane Chant just in case you're in stuff where your defense 5 and the Moloch card need a little bit of help turning 8 damage into 10 or 11, putting a 50 17 nerve unit into danger range. And obviously that's where the shooting comes in again, just to help put you in that position where the Moloch cards are one-shot and stuff. Ifrit with its levitation because he's awesome. He's got a lot cheaper, and that's fine because his fireball got worse, and he's still good before he does. But being able to march and shoot and piss people off is great.
There's a lot of shooting, isn't there, in this list?
He's deceiving them. What have you got? 30. Yeah, there's like 40 odd shots.
How many fireballs have the Ifrit got these days?
15.
So yeah, there's 45 fireballs. And
10
how many
fire blasts? 55.
8 or 10 on the flame bearer.
From the flame bearers, and they've got steady aim at range 4 with 18 inch.
Yeah, so there's 34 firebolts and 45 fireballs.
All range 4 with steady aim as well.
And that's on top of having 4 Moloch cards.
Yeah.
And 4 fiends, 3 fiends in combat as well.
Also fight and inspire. That's just as well with the boots because it's awesome. And Elliot took it because I used it against him. And the first game I did it, it wiped my backline and annoyed
It's horrific. One thing that we didn't mention when we were at my bit is what the rule change to Scout does now. So it's now changed in Scout that you ignore terrain while scouting. And obviously the Seductress flies are standard. So she can move 20 inches into terrain, into a forest. And she's got Ensnare. So she can basically sit in front of almost anything with -2 to hit, and then just sit there laughing as she then flies off behind with her. As Tom mentioned, first game we played with the new edition, he flew off behind, killed my, can't remember what it was. It was some kind of wizard. Overran into another unit, broke that in one go, and then just took the game out in one go effectively.
It was inspiring. It was a standard bearer with the loot. I took him off immediately. Then I overran to the Beats Pack Girth Panther troop behind it. So I took off his inspiring and his chaff, turn 1, he's there going, yeah, I didn't see you could do that. Because it's so hard to deal with. Especially since if you sat in the wood turn 1, you aren't getting lightning bolt as easy, which makes up for your poor defense, but it's cheap as well.
Like, the big thing with this list here, Tom, is the amount of questions it's asking. It's asking 4 Morlock cards, can anyone actually outgrind that? The answer's probably no. it's got a deceiving amount of chip damage from the flame bearers and everything else that are going to take out the Death 5, like Elliot's cavalry. It's going to start putting chips on them.
Yeah.
You've got 2 really good threats that are going to be trying to get in the backfield, like your Efreet and your Seductress, that are going to be running around going, well, I'm going to start picking individuals off. I'm going to get rid of that key BSB. I'm going to get rid of that Keybane chant. And you've got, to top all this up, you've got 3 Titans in there that are running around looking for flanks, looking for this, looking for that. Because they're nimble as well, which I don't think we actually mentioned. The Abyssal Fiends are nimble.
Are they nimble?
Yes. No, they're not.
No, they're not nimble.
Or they were in play
No, they
testing,
were.
sorry.
They never were.
No.
Oh no, they've
No.
always been good, but they've never been nimble good. I'd be ridiculous.
Never been so good. That would be believable good.
Ignore
It's,
the
it's
other
great.
one.
There used to be a formation, didn't there, that made the Archfiend nimble.
That's
years
what I'm
ago,
thinking.
Just to answer your question there, Dan, about is this something we look for in all units for Scout in other armies? I like Scout on individuals. I'm not always sure it's worth it, but the Seductress is particularly worth it because of the kind of trick with ensnare into terrain and the fact that she's got built-in fly.
And
Duelist.
Yeah.
So she has all the tools to just triple down on that Scout.
I don't even think the ensnare is the best bit about the kit, to be honest with you. I think
No,
the
but
best bit about the kit is fly and duelist.
But quite often it's a bit of it's a gamble whether you're going to get first turn with Scout. Whereas with the Seductress, it's really not, because you can put her in front of a melee 4 unit or a melee 5 unit in terrain with ensnare, and you're just laughing. You don't care if you get first turn or not.
quite often as well, she forces your opponent to not choose second. Like, say if you wanted to go second for whatever reason based on scenario, they'll look at her and go, I can't afford to give up first turn to this girl. So I'm going to have to go first. It's like, well, she's not actually worth that many points.
No.
But she's scared you enough, you've given up a massive tactical advantage in this particular scenario in order to not have her in your backlines turn 1 or charging your individuals or your war engines or whatever else she feels like doing at the time.
Yeah.
Lovely.
No,
Lovely.
I like it. It's a deceptive punchy gun line.
Yep, stealthy individual and a wood as well. Good luck shooting her off the bows.
But interestingly, even though we both have the Seductress and we both have the Fiends and a Warlock, it's a very, very different style of list to mine.
That's proper combined arms.
Yeah, it does. It does show you, doesn't it? What Force of the Abyss can do in terms of, even though the support pieces are similar or exactly the same, they'll play very differently between our 2 lists.
Yeah, you look at Abyssal Horsemen compared to Molochs, and they're quite similar. But then you look at these 2 lists, and you go, actually, because of the Flame Bearers, because of the extra feed, it's actually quite a lot different. That shooting, nothing to sniff at. So I played our mate's side with it, and he took off a regiment of Gore Riders turn 1. He was there going, "Oh, I didn't think he'd do that much damage." Yeah, the ball got steady aim, but then the 2 Warlocks and the Efreet goes wherever the fuck he wants. I've got 27 inches to shoot at first turn. He didn't realise just how much damage they can put out.
Yeah,
it's flexible.
I think in version 3, if you're trying to do a shooty list, it's with this sort of style of shooting. It's the range 4 piercing 1 stuff. If you're trying to spam it, so to say, not that this is spam, but there's a lot of it. If you're trying to do a dedicated shooting list, it's not a dedicated shooting list anymore, because you can't have a full list of it. You've got to have the punchy support. You've got to have the other big thing as well is the Abyssal Fiends actually keep people away from you at times.
Speed 7, yeah. A lot of stuff in what you're playing against is usually speed 7 less, so they are range.
Well, if the Abyssal Fiends only buy you 1 extra turn of shooting, you're happy, aren't you? Yeah. You've put that much damage out. You're happy days.
And they're always useful, Abyssal Fiends, because they're always either inspiring or shooting or fighting, and brutal as well. So you tag them on with your Moloch, who needs this other upgrade. He's doing the job. No.
It's 4 damage in it.
Yeah, they are
It's
just
literally
everything.
4 or 5 damage.
It's everything that this needs.
It's almost like Mantic wanted to sell a load more of those models.
I should have made the Dragon version better then. It's still a bit weak.
It should have done.
I look at the Abyssal Fiend as a Force of Nature player with the Beast of Nature, and the Beast of Nature is 5 points more expensive. That's Pathfinder, but doesn't have Inspiring, Brutal, Fury, or Fireball as standard. So it's just wow.
Yeah.
Anyway,
part of the reason why you took Mauler cards as well for this one is because they unlock the monsters. They give you the title, whereas the Regiment of Horsemen can't do that.
Correct.
Exactly. Yeah. So when we were looking at building these lists, obviously, like I said, we didn't plan them in advance, and we all kind of, put ideas that we thought were strong. And when we started sticking them in the group chat, Nick and Adam put their lists in first, to which Tom's response was, quite like. So you may notice a theme in the next two lists.
I just built my Revenant Cav list to take on Tom Annis, I think, at the time, which was 21 Drain Life. So let's see what happens here then.
No, I wrote this before I knew what list you were taking. In all fairness, I didn't know you was running that against Tom Annis. That was just a happy coincidence.
It's almost as if Drain Life is very powerful. You'd think, as a Twilight King player, I'd have brought Drain Life, but I didn't. Yeah. So, Adam, take it away.
Right, it looks like I've got quite a bit more stuff than everyone else looking at the amount there. But what I've gone with is I've gone for a lower Abyssal Horde, just for a nice footprint. It's a good footprint on the board, and it does take a bit of getting rid of, to be honest with you, with regen and everything. And I've gone for 4 Abyssal Guard regiments, because Abyssal Guard regiments, I think, are fantastic.
Yeah, they're good.
12 attacks, melee 3, crushing 1, you can't go wrong.
I prefer the old version, but I think they're still good.
Yeah, but the reason I've gone with 4 of them is that it is Def 5, Fearless 16 as the core. It's the Fearless 16 part. I wouldn't say they're very killy. They're killy, but they're not very killy, but they've only got 12 attacks at melee 3. It's a slow grind more than anything else with them. I've got a Gargoyle troop for... Because why not? Why not? They're amazing at the end of the day. You either just leave them behind your lines and grab an objective late game, or they stick behind your lines and chaff whatever you need chaffing up at some point. Mm-hmm. I've gone for 2 Mauler cards, and I'll be honest with you, I put the Despoiler upgrade on them. But when I put the Despoiler... Well, no, I'm not going to lie, I didn't realise they were Fury.
It's literally Abyssal Sting.
I don't know about the old army rule, which they nearly all have, apart from the Gargoyles.
So I think that actually sums up. I don't play Abyssals. I've never written an Abyssal list in my life. This was just the first one that came to my mind. I literally looked at it and went, "Oh, it gives them Fearless and Brutal. That's all right. We'll put that on." So, saying that, let's say I've got it. I would drop that for 40 points for something else. And now I've gone for, because as you say, we said Abyssal, the Mauler cards are good. It's 18 attacks at melee 3, solid. Yeah,
crushing too.
Especially when you've got your Abyssal Guard regiments scattered around your Mauler cards for a solid front line. Very solid front line. A lot of nerve and a lot of defence there. And now I've got 3 Abyssal Fiends. Again, there's a little bit of a theme here with Abyssal Fiends. And the main reason they're in is inspiring.
Yeah. And Fireball, and the monster, and the nerve, and the brutal.
Because
it's in the case of the good all-round support piece. Isn't it?
Yeah. Because
the nice thing
is that... because I actually quite like the idea, because Abyssal Fiends are Titans as well, so you can actually have them staggered behind the Abyssal Guard.
Yeah.
So that you can actually march up into range, fireball over the Abyssal Guards with no penalty because you're too high. And then you're going to put a couple of damage on, and then the turn after you get double, triple charges, because you're not, if you're advancing like that, you're not going to allow your opponent to get the correct sort of charging off to kill the Abyssal Guard in one go. And then now we're onto the Drain Life section. I've got 3 Abyssal Warlocks with Drain Life 6 each, so 18 Drain Life. And Abyssal Warlocks are just great. They walk up with your fireballs or firebolts, whatever they're called, range 18 firebolts, pinging at chaff, pinging at whatever they need to ping at. And when they get when they get close to combat or into combat, they start Drain Lifing into combat. Because Drain Life 6, it's effectively 2-3, a brutal 2 or 3 in it, let's be honest. And then it's going to heal 2 or 3 damage per. And you've demonstrated perfectly what Drain Life can do on Game V Annis, didn't you, Tom? So,
yeah, no, Well, and that's what the list was built for. But yeah.
Yeah, the amount of high defense fearless stuff in this list, because I've put Despoiler in there for no reason. The amount of fearless Def 5 Drain Life, it all just adds together as a perfect. Yeah,
it's all regening near enough.
Yes.
A lot of it's regening with Drain Life.
Yeah, pretty much everything's regening. So there's a lot of wave and mitigation in this list. There's a lot of high defense in this list, and it's quite accurate as well because it's all melee 3 basically.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and to top it off, I've got 2 Harlequin Blood Masks.
Very nice.
And
I like them. They're nice units.
What do they not do for 85 points?
It's
melee 3 attacks. They just fly off,
That's very good.
They fly off the ping in, even just for a couple of extra damage into a combat if you need it.
Mm. Yeah, well, you can stick them out in front of your lines and use them as a flyer mitigation card.
Mm. Yeah, exactly.
No, that's very good. Now, see, I controversially, I love Drain Life. I hate it. It's stupid. I think it's very good. I don't think the Warlocks are the best Drain Life platform. I just think not being on an individual, even having individuals with the Twilight Kin can struggle more than you think to get the shot sometimes. And I think having it on that large infantry, even nimble platform, will struggle more than you think to get the use out of it.
That's my issue as well. Obviously, using 3. I'm essentially using 3 Lich Kings, but 2 of them with the Blitz Levitation, and they do their job. But the last one, he's struggling. So you've got to be careful with him. Whereas you've got to be careful with all 3 of these to get these in.
Yep.
And that's what I found with the Summoner Crones. The flying one does brilliant. The Blitz Levitation one does brilliant. The last one, even on a speed 9 horse, just struggles. And that's a speed 9 360.
I think it's the way you guys are playing it with them, with the units you just spoke about, though. Because the Lich Kings and Morghast, they can fly off, get in your opponent's face, or just get out of an arc and start doing damage. They're kind of the first wave. These aren't being used as a first wave. These are being used as a support element rather than a piece in itself, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that these are unit strength, that I agree. The units you just said are better at Drain Life than these, no doubt about it. But these are giving something additional to what them other ones do, because these have got your unit strength for your objective grabbing, and they're the more supporty element.
The
these
difference
are actually
as well
quite
is
good at taking off chaff as well with your range 18.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose the difference with the 3 Warlocks as well is there's 360 points invested into that. I don't know if you know off the top of your head, Tom, how much Drain Life was invested in with your undead list. Be almost twice that, won't it?
Right, no, but it's weird with Lich Kings. The Lich Kings do several jobs. Like if you watch that game, you'll see how I use them as they also marshal. So you'll see how I use them to pin enemy units in to engineer the correct charge for the rest of my hordes and stuff. Like, they're doing several jobs because they're surgeon, they're inspiring, they're doing all it.
It's chalk and cheese. It's chalk and cheese when it's chalk and cheese when you're comparing Morghast and 2 Lich Kings to 3 Abyssal Warlocks.
I agree.
Them 3 Warlocks with Drain Life 18 is only 360 points. That's not a big investment at all.
It's not when they're also doing other things, as you say. They're also inspiring. They're also firebolting. They're also unit strength. They're also
what I've seen with Drain Life as well is no matter how many points you're paying for it, it pretty much always pays for itself. Pretty much. I haven't seen a single game yet where it hasn't paid for itself.
I suppose it's only 30 points there on each of them, so it's not a big investment, even if it doesn't.
I think it's only 20. Yeah, it's 30 points. So 90 points is the investment for Drain Life. There, it's nothing. It's a gargoyle red troop.
Yeah. I'll just say, Jacob, hold that thought.
Well, before we move on to that, should we get Dan's question? Dan has asked in consideration for the Well of Souls. Now, I played the Well of Souls a lot. I am the reason why all these guys hate the Well of Souls, because I use it in 2nd edition all the time because it was amazing.
Hate it with an unholy passion.
Not in it now.
I still hate it now, but I don't think it's anywhere near as good now.
Yeah, because what happened to it? It lost some Drain Life, didn't it? And it got a points high.
It dropped the speed to a 8, but it lost Shambling, which I think is a double-edged sword. I think actually it was better before. Giving it 2 less speed, letting it fly normally, who really cares? Because it sat with your main line until you had to charge off anyway, because it was doing its job, which is being the Well of Souls. And only being live for each 3, because often, being the Well of Souls, it had the height, the speed to engineer flank charges, so it'll go, all right, I'm going to take 10 damage, and then I'm going to fuck off into the flank of that little thing. I'm going to kill it. I'm going to take half that damage back, and then I'm going to do it again and again and again, and I'm going to generate another 12 damage, and I'm not going to die.
Whereas it was pretty horrific.
Now, I'm only getting 3 back.
Yeah. Which is a big difference.
Yeah. I'm more expensive. It's all added up to there's better options.
I think you're right. I think there's better ways in the Abyssals now to mitigate and get damage back. And it's a bit of drain life. It's regen that you've got. You've got.
Most of has regen because the Will of Souls, it babysat the Heliquins for the early game when the Heliquins with their nerve weren't dying. That made sure.
Cautious Souls were also more of a thing, weren't they?
They were much more of a threat. They're an actual mainline combat unit rather than now where they're a support chaff piece. That's what they were for. That's where you needed the Well of Souls. But because Heliquins are gone, because Abyssal Horsemen have got regen now, you don't quite need all those steps anymore.
Yeah,
I think it's very expensive as well.
300 points is ridiculous.
Yeah, and I might be the only one here, but I hate the model Mantic's just brought out.
Oh, I do. I really like
it. It's just fucking terrible.
Yeah.
I think they're stuck between a terrain piece and a monster.
I'm curious to see it in the flesh because I think a lot of things look better in the flesh, but I'm not a fan personally, which is a shame because like the Cronius I think is an absolutely beautiful model. But it's a bit like it's with a lot of Mantic's range is that if you showed me the Cronius and showed me the Well of Souls and told me they were in the same range, you'd never guess. You know, there's nothing particularly linking them, is there?
No.
They're just totally different.
I think the only thing to add to Dan's question there is that I don't actually think my list needs any more grindy power. So I think the Well of Souls would be just a waste.
Yeah. For me, if anything, it's not quite hitty enough.
Mm.
The Abyssal Guard are alright, but they don't kill. If you do a proper killy horde army, those Abyssal Guard regiments will get picked up. The Molochs won't quite do enough and all that kind of jazz.
Like the fact now that I know that Morlocks have Fury, then points would be dropped, and I would be getting Bane Chant or putting some items in there.
You can do with the Bane Chant, I think, in here.
You don't. That's what the Drain Life does. That's your other issue. Is if you're getting Bane Chant, those Abyssal Warlocks getting quite expensive when they've already got a damage spell, they've always got a damage attack, and they've already got a spell. Right.
I think in that case, you'd be dropping a Heliquin.
On a mask. Drop a Heliquin. Drop a Heliquin, put a flag, put something in there.
Or just give the loot to the Heliquin.
No, Flying Seductress. Upgrade it to a Flying Seductress.
Yeah, that's...
Flying Seductress for Scout.
To be honest with you, the reason I didn't have the Flying Seductress in there is that I didn't have the points. No, I didn't have the points on what I wanted, but dropping both Despoilers would give me the points for the third, for the Flying Seductress. So we can probably say that there would be a Flying Seductress in 3 lists so far. Yeah.
Brilliant. Right. So obviously we don't have Nick with us, but we still have his list.
I'll go through this one, I think.
Yeah. There's a theme here.
Right then, so Abyssal Horde lower variety. So you've got 2 of these, one with strength and one with sharpness. It gives you a nice little. At that point, they had a proper combat block. Now they've lost a point of nerve, which does suck. I like if you're going to put the points in for the strength and the sharpness, I'd probably go the extra whole hog and just put sacrificial in for myself. So I think we'll see why he hasn't done that in a second. We have 5 troops of Abyssal Guard. I think this is one of the reasons where Abyssal Guard are kind of overlooked, but still excellent. They're dash 12 of the troop with regen.
I really like these.
Yeah, I like them. It's good. I think I showed quite well when I ran the Kingdom of Endless with 8 Polearm troops, and it subsequently got Polearms nerfed.
They no longer exist.
One big thing.
Tom did a thing, and they no longer exist in the game anymore.
It wasn't even good, but I think it showed that.
one big thing to point out here for all the Abyssal Guard troops in Nick's list is that he's changed them to 2-hand weapons.
Yeah, I was just checking that.
Yes, they've all got
flicking through.
They've all got an extra crushing. So the lower defense, they're only def 4, but they're crushing 2 now, 3, whatever it is.
Oh, and also, by the way, sorry, the Abyssal Hordes, lower Abyssal Hordes do have the imps.
Right.
Just that the amateur that typed it up onto this PowerPoint didn't put it on.
Yeah.
Told you Nick shouldn't be allowed to go away.
He's done the right job there.
Yeah.
So Abyssal Guard troops with 2-hand weapons. Yeah, that still works because they're a legitimate combat threat. I think
Abyssal Guard Crush one already?
No.
Oh, okay. I don't like my list then. I thought they had pushing up.
Well, there you go.
But I really like the troops here because you've got the same damage output effectively as you did with the 4 regiments. But considerably cheaper.
And Nick's list doesn't need the unlocks.
No. Oh. Sorry, go on, Nick.
I like him because I think, like I was saying about the Kingdom Men troop spam, is you get to a critical mass with troops where even though it's a Kingdom Men Powerline troop, and then 9/11 with defense 3, you can't shoot them all off. You can have a lot of shots and not manage to shoot them all off. You might be able to pick up 2, but there's 6 more coming at you. And they're going to get in, they're going to do some damage. So the Abyssal Guard here, even though there's less of them, they're more effective in the role, so they're more likely to get there anyway to do the job, which is get in, add to combat, do a semi-thick shaft kind of role. So I quite like the Abyssal Guard troop. It's very overlooked. But
I think Fearless on a troop is massive as well.
Yeah.
It's not ever getting in your way. And that's a huge thing.
The big thing with chaff sometimes is if you get that waver on them, because you're putting them in the way, aren't you? You're putting them away on purpose. If they get wavered, it's like, well, I'm fucked now.
Yeah, usually there's terrain with a hard footprint, you're going to struggle to get over that troop to then do something, or it means you're not charging, which is important. So after that, you've got a horde of Molochs with the Despoiler Champion. No sacrificial imp, I don't think, Kelly, unless I'm wrong.
No, definitely no imp on this one.
Cool. Yeah, I don't. Again, Nick's a big fan of the Despoiler Champion. I'm not as much of a fan, since you've got the Abyssal Guard troops for the chaff roll that run just in front of it. They give you the stealthy. Well, I don't know. They give you cover from
cover. Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't have the Veil of Shadows in this, I suppose, does he? But and he's only got the 1, so he's relying on it more. He doesn't have redundant Moloch odds.
Yeah, he doesn't have 3 spare ones. So
and
tying all this together quite nicely is the 3 monsters. So you got 2 cronies with Drain Life 8, and
I really like that.
So we know what the Fiend's there. We know what he does.
We've mentioned the Fiend.
We know he's good.
I really, really like the cronies with Drain Life. This for me, this is how Abyssal should do Drain Life.
I'm not sure
because it's the Cloak of Death that tips it over for me. It's the fact that this unit can be doing something. I know it's a whole lot of points that's not fighting, but it almost doesn't need to be. It's the fact that it's Cloak of Deathing and Drain Lifing and can just see everything all the time, which is a bit of an issue when you're charging things in and it blocks your line of sight. I just think these are really nice.
To be honest with you, I'm looking at Nick's list now. I'm looking back at mine. I'd be better off upgrading one of my Abyssal Fiends to a Cronius for that additional for that additional grinding power. Then I can get some burn chance.
You need some spare points.
Drop Despoiler. It's 40 points. That's right for upgrade.
Oh, what I've also missed here because I'm an idiot is the Harbinger has the loot.
So that's also important. Yeah,
that's quite important when you've got a Bro Sharpness, lower Abyssal Horde.
My issue with the Drain Life Cronius is that it's a 30-point upgrade, so you're putting 60-odd points into it, but the Croniuses tend to fight anyway, and Cronius, as they are a worse giant. Like, for their points, are worse than a giant by a margin.
They are, but they're just a big block of nerve. They're a big block of...
It's not as big as a giant now, it's only 16, 18.
Yeah,
I know, but it's
not enough.
It's still got all these troops around it. It's still
a lot of monsters are running in at like 19s and 20s these days. And it's not...
I know, but I just really like these. I think Cloak of Death is really powerful. Really, really powerful.
I think it's underrated. I don't think it's really powerful. I think it's underrated.
I mean, it's brutal, isn't it? Effectively, in this list, it's brutal onto everything, and you've got brutal that stacks, and then you've got Matibusu, which is extra brutal again, if you need it.
Yeah, she's got.
That stacks really well with Cloak of Death, because then you're looking at D3 plus 1 onto any combat in that area when she flies in.
Yeah, if I had the points, I'd consider dropping one fiend for a Cronius, but I probably wouldn't take Drain Life. I'd be banking on getting combat using that Cloak of Death.
Yeah.
I actually agree with that. I think
smaller base as well, which matters.
Yeah. I kind of have to agree with that. I think Drain Life on a Cronius is a double-edged sword because you kind of want him in combat.
It gets to the point where you've paid 60 points and you're using it once because then you have to get in combat.
Yeah, it feels like a one-use upgrade.
Yeah, but it's Drain Life 8. It's a lot.
It doesn't matter. Because the
But
thing is,
if you only do 2 damage, it's nowhere near useful compared to getting stuck into combat.
This is the thing. It's like I feel like even as it's only range 6. Remember, Drain Life. It's short range, so your opponent can sort of like go, well, I'm going to leave you out of Drain Life range, but leave you in charge range. So if you're going to charge me, you're not trading efficiently now.
I do think the Abyssal Guard troops are the perfect pairing with the Cronius with Drain Life, because if you're putting 1 or 2 of them in, you can kind of create that wall between you and stuff in the way. Whereas if you've just got one big unit that dies, then you're getting charged next turn.
What Jacob Woods just said is he says Drain Life the unit until you get a flank. I think that's easier said than done though, because the problem is with Drain Life, you're still wanting to be in a position where you're close to a unit to actually heal, because the main thing about Drain Life is the healing, in my opinion, anyway. So you being able to get into a flank, I feel like if you're flanking with Cronius, you're flanking because your opponent's giving you a flank, not because you've engineered a flank.
Well, quite often if you're using Drain Life, it's because you need to make sure your thing survives. So if you're Drain Lifing, it means that unit is in danger of dying. Therefore, you don't want to be moving away to engineer a flank. You've got to stay there, because the Crony serve as a second line unit. So they're behind the Abyssal Guard troops, moving up behind them. So when the Abyssal Guard gets stuck in and take a bit of damage, roll the region, you can heal them back up to full with it, and not just in stuff way, I guess. That's what I mean. It really revs up the Abyssal Guard troop with the 2-handed weapons, with Cloak of Death, with the Drain Life Stunner, which is a proper, decent hammer kind of threat.
Cool.
I think you're going to struggle to get them into the flanks where they want to be, because your opponent's not going to let you, and that's not where you're going to deploy them. They're going to be central because they're supporting the rest of your army.
Right. I'll move us on because I want to keep us as close to an hour as we can.
One very quick one.
Is also good. There you go.
One very quick one. Dan asked a question saying, "What's Nick's argument for the Despoiler Champion?" And I know Nick likes it for the fearless, basically as
I think it's for the shooting. I think in this list it's I think it's much more useful in this list than it was in Tom's, because you don't have redundant Moloch odds.
Yeah, the 20 point factor. If you're looking at Brule, it's 10 points. You're looking at another 10 points turning Fury to fearless. It's not bad overall, but I'd rather save the points.
I wouldn't do it 4 times. I might do it once.
No, I think it's fine on one unit here, but I think it's in my list with 2 of them. I think it's borderline questionable then. On is it actually worth?
Yeah. Right. So just because me and my stats, I like grass. I thought I'd put this together, which I quite like. Any surprises here? Obviously, the Fiend, we've all taken at least one. Nick clearly has gone for the fluffiest version and has only taken 1 Fiend. Is there any surprises here in the units that weren't taken? Can you imagine in version 2 not one of us taking Bazuzu?
No, it'd have been
now something of a trap, because
Bazuzu's too expensive.
You just take a champ, or you take Seductress instead, or you find a couple of points and take both of them for cheaper.
To be honest with you, I don't think this is just an Abyssal problem. I think a lot of Living Legends are too many points for what they do.
Yeah, I think Bazuzu got 10 points cheaper, but lost Vicious and an attack essentially a nerve.
And a nerve.
Yeah,
lost a
nerve
lot of stuff.
But that's 2 to 3 extra damage. You lost 2 damage eventually, and that's a lot.
I don't see the benefit now over the Abyssal Champion. I think the
Champion's
it's not worth the extra points.
With Fury and proper
Fury and inspiring for everything, and
It's also weird not seeing an Archfiend in a list.
Yeah.
Archfiends weren't very good before, but it's because you kind of had to take one of them because it was the
That's
dragon.
what I mean. That's what I mean.
It's
You had
not-
to take one before, but now you don't.
Not bad, but it's still not very good value for money compared to other people's dragons.
It's probably one of the worst dragons in the game.
310 points though, but it's 1618, which is very low.
It's Fury, but even then, that's not.
Yeah, but
great.
it's not a fearless Basilian dragon, is it? A fearless 19.
For how many points?
For same, isn't it? 5 points more?
It's like 5 points more.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 5 points more. And it gets the age fragment.
But this one's got vicious and brutal.
No, but it's one less attack.
Yeah.
So vicious and brutal does that. One less nerve is massive, and not being fearless when you've got Fury, that's 2 points of nerve difference, and it's already a point of nerve down. Yeah.
Just from I agree. I really like Matsubusu. I think she's a little bit pricey, but she's that D3 brutal is huge.
She's got Crush 1 and she's got Duelist now, so she's actually good. Whereas before she was terrible. Now she's actually good.
But
she's my third choice. She's my third choice. It's Duchess, then Champion, and then Matsubusu. And sometimes or 4 actually. I run a second Champion as well with wings for 4 flying individuals, just to really
just to be that guy.
It's also fun when people start going on about War Machine spam, and then Abyssals turn up with 4 flying individuals, and they go, "Oh, well, I've lost this."
I've run 4 of them in 3 or 4 games. Actually, at the time I think you saw I had two champions, Seductress with Scout and Matsubusu, and she's like, it's not many points, but dragons aren't ever going to do what they want to do. War engines are pointless. Blitzskull by shooting on anything regiment level is pointless because eventually any of my single individuals will get you and it will shoot you. No.
Yeah, Abyssals are just another reason why shooting's not that good in version 3.
Yeah.
Abyssals shut shooting down very hard at times.
Can do, yeah. I think it's worth saying that again, we wrote these lists in complete isolation, didn't consult on them at all, and I think we got 4 very different lists out of Forces of the Abyss here. I think it's a very, very flexible army, isn't it? I think when there was a question put up on the Fanatics the other day about the top 3 armies, and mine were Undead and Abyssal Dwarves, and then my third, not because I think they're overpowered, because they're not, but is Forces of the Abyss, just because you can do so much with it. It's so flexible. They do everything well, and a bit of everything well. I think the Fiend is probably the only unit that is obviously undercosted. And that's shown here. We've all taken, multiples of them.
There's 9 across 4 lists here. That kind of shows.
Yeah.
And I think Moloch stand out as the main line unit because they're just the best all-rounder. Whereas if I'm running Abyssalisk myself, I'd probably have 2 regiments in there, and I'd have 1 horde of Molochs, and I'd have Succubi.
I do find it weird. That version 3 was supposed to make infantry better, but you're still just going to take your Moloch hordes, your large infantry stuff 90% of the time.
I think that's more of a Moloch issue than a version 3 issue, though.
Well, no, it happens. Anyway, this is a discussion for another time, but that happens across other armies as well.
Moloch's got a lot better than last edition as well. Melee 380 attacks is better than 24 on 4. When you go into cover, it's typically the same, but as soon as you hit cover, melee 3 becomes better.
Yeah.
I think the one surprising stat in that graph was the fact that only 1 person took Torture Souls compared to version 2.
Yeah. They were an auto include because they were awesome. Now they are not an auto include because they're.
But actually, that had already happened by the end of V2, hadn't it? Torture Souls went from.
No.
I know, but
you just didn't see him as allies. But do you remember the
first Masters where was it like a third of the field brought Torture Souls with gargoyles as allies?
Yeah.
And then obviously, I know that went away, but it was.
In Abyssals though, you still always saw, depending on your play style, you always saw 2 regiments or 2 hordes.
I still really like
why I got into Abyssals. I got a box set from winning a tournament, I think you were, and I bought a box and thinking, it's cool. I painted it up and thought, actually, I want to use these. I've got some gargoyles, so I'll just take 2 regiments. I picked up the Matsubusu model because it was a beautiful model.
I'm using it as my flying Summoner Run.
Yeah, I
It's a
used,
really nice model.
I used her as a champion, so I had a nice little like allied contingent. It worked really well, so it built from there. And then I built like I've got all of your stuff from you guys, and then I've got like 3 or 4 cave abyssals from it.
Yeah, you just raided my garage, didn't you? One night when we were quite drunk, and I went, "Yeah, just come take what you want."
Yeah, you got a lot of my chaos demons and all, didn't you?
Just running that little allied contingent, I ended up buying the entire army. And I can easily run 2,500 points of actual Mantic Abyssals as well, which is quite cool.
Yeah. Right, I'm moving us on because we've already gone over an hour.
Yep.
So, onto the Royal Council. No, you can't just. So this is where we've taken questions from members of the community. So we've done 2 this time because there was no way we were going to fill an hour with only 3 of us. We've already gone over an hour, but oh well. I'm still going to do the 2.
This is what happens when Nick's not here to keep us on track.
Exactly.
Because we all talk shite when we're by ourselves.
Question from Matt Gorham. In Kings of War, is going first the most important thing? So I'm going to start and say 80% of the time, yes. Depending on what army you've got, it's huge. I think is going first. If you've got a fast army and you can put that pressure on and dictate the flow of play, I think it's going to be massive.
I haven't not wanted to go first in version 3 yet. There's never been a single game I've played so far, and I've played a lot because I went on playtesting and everything. There's not been a single game where it's been like, actually, I want to go second here. Not a single one, because getting up and getting into position, or getting up to deny a person a turn of a lightning bolt or a turn of whatever, has been more, or even getting up to stop your opponent, getting their flyers up, that's been more important than actually going
that's
second.
The main one for me, I think, is that thing of putting pressure on to dictate the flow of how the game's going to go.
And I know there's a slight advantage in scenario sometimes in going second, but it's not enough of an advantage for going second.
Just like control.
Yeah. Interestingly, when we first started playing, I remember the view being the complete opposite, that you always wanted to go second for scenario. And I think as we sort of got more into Kings and got more into realizing just how powerful blocking lines of sight off and blocking areas of the board off is, we just flipped completely over to say, if you can, go first every single time.
I'm going to say it's not the most important thing to go first, but I would always go first.
I think it's 99% of the time. If you look at with what 3rd edition did to like normal range shooting, when I ran my elves, I didn't mind going second because my army was fast enough to react, but also I had a shit ton of 24-inch shooting, which was good. Now, if you come into my range and I'd have to move my archers forward, that's great by me. I'm going to take that all day. I'm going to shoot you off. I'll take that extra round of shooting, actually, so I'm not wasting the archers. Same with the Honor Guard with volleygons. I don't mind going second if you're going to run towards me. So Honor Guard with volleygons. With volleygons.
Honor Guard. Mounted volleygons is what we need.
Yeah. Oh, that would be amazing. Can you imagine a Rordia chariot with a volleygun on it? Oh, man.
This is where Nick would step in and go, get back onto topic.
Well, it is on topic, but you know what I mean? Like, I didn't mind getting first turn because I can make use of it to take the ground with the Honor Guard, to move the infantry into position, and the volleygons as well to prove, because people don't think volleygons move forward, they think they stay put and wait for you. So if you
go first with volleygons, you're always moving forward, or you should always be moving forward.
Well, hold that thought, Tom. So, and any other thoughts on going first? I think we're all pretty much in agreement.
I think in summary, you'd always go first, but it's not the most important thing because it's a bit broad, that statement, because it might not be the most important thing in the game because the scenario is the most important thing in the game.
Yeah. A good example of that, again, I know we've mentioned it twice, but it was a really good fun game and really tactical. If you look at mine and Tom Anderson's game on the -28 lot, I went second there against 3 Angkor mortars with an all cavalry army. Now you'd think you really want to go first there, and it's a big detriment to go second. And yeah, it hurt. Angkor heavy mortars, it's what they do, but not that big a deal.
Yeah.
Then fine.
But I think given the choice, you'd choose to go first, wouldn't you? But it wasn't.
Oh, I would have chosen, but definitely. But yeah, it's not the most.
It wasn't game deciding. Yeah.
As that game showed, it wasn't the.
So I think that just reassures that going first is important.
Yeah. Brilliant, right? And so here we go. So it was speeding through these, but I am conscious of time. So, Mr. Steve Hildrew, you talk a lot about board control. What are the key elements of board control? And the first one that springs to my mind is, Tom, you've already mentioned it, your disgusting little organ guns.
Right, so a good example for this is second edition My Rordy list. So it had 3 volley guns, it had 2 halfling saucers with Windblast 7. It had a honor guard in there as well, and it also had Drain Life on halflings. So what that did is you had a multiple layered effect for board control. So if your enemy comes into range of the volley guns, you can shoot them and Windblast them out. If they come too close to the volley gun, you can Windblast them away and then shoot them again. If they come so far in that you're not going to be able to use the volley guns properly and you get to combat, you've got your Drain Life. You've got your honor guard there to stop them from coming too close. At each point, you've got levels of board control which hold your enemy back or make your enemy do what you want. So while it was a slow army, while it wasn't very manoeuvrable, it held ground like a motherfucker.
Yeah.
Every single part of that did a different element of board control, which worked together beautifully. I think I will master that list. Actually.
Yeah,
you did, right? Because there's the chaff element, isn't there, which is the kind of the most understood and most well-known one of simply using chaff to get in the way. And then I suppose there's charge lines. So there's having flyers going down flanks, just physically being there, just to be there, rather than actually ever going to charge. So it's there's the common saying that something doesn't have to ever charge anything to make its points back, because you can have that dragon staying on the side, and if your opponent is shifting and turning the entire game, it's done its job. It doesn't need to charge.
400 points of turning around at each turn to look at a dragon. Your 300-point dragon is doing its job.
One thing that I do, I know a lot of other people do, is I look at activations. So if I'm running an MSU list with 18 drops, I've got 18 activations a turn. If I'm moving forward a 100-point unit that's drawing the attention of 300 points from your opponent, I'm winning board control.
Yeah.
Or if I'm flying a dragon up on a flank, that's 300 points. And if my opponent's turning 2 regiments and a horde to look at it, I am massively winning.
Yeah. I think for me, I'm sort of going on from that. A key element of board control there really is to have a bit of a plan behind it, because there's no use flying your dragon up or flying the unit up, having everything turn, and then you go, well, oh great, what have I achieved from that? There has to be some payoff from doing it. You don't just want to do it just for the sake of it. So if you're flying your dragon up to turn everything around, there has to be some hammers coming up another flank.
One thing I see a lot of, especially in newer players, is that they will put a dragon on the flank, and they understand that if you get a dragon behind your opponent, a dragon into a flank or a rear in this game kills pretty much anything in the game. So they understand if they can get a dragon behind the lines, they're practically winning. But I see a lot of newer players put a dragon on the flank, fly it up, and then not know how to support it.
Yeah, or not have the answer when everything just turns. It's like, oh, but I did the thing. I got the dragon on the flank, and it's like, yeah, but then you need everything else working in tandem, and that's sort of the trick behind my Order of the Green Lady list with the flying exemplar redeemers. That they're just good enough that you can't ignore them, and they can dictate the flow of game, and they can turn units around and make you play how I want you to play. All the while, you've got cavalry and wall elementals barreling down the board towards the front of you. And units like the Flying Seductress, she's incredible for board control because she's just got a big 20-inch zone of nope for any individual, in that area. So units like that, I think. But any other sort of closing comments on board control in general?
So, 2 things I want to press upon is, obviously we mentioned chaff briefly because we all know what chaff does. A key element to chaff is not throwing away too early, and I see a lot of people do this, where they throw away the chaff unit in front thinking, great, I'm going to slow them down. If you haven't supported that chaff unit, if you're not then putting the threat in behind it, you're throwing away a chaff unit for nothing. If your opponent's running forward and hitting it anyway, then your opponent's across the board, picks chaff unit up and isn't getting any retaliatory for it. So I see a lot of people throw that beast pack right up there thinking, yeah, first turn, chaff unit, bang.
Aha! I've annoyed you.
Yeah.
And literally they have just annoyed you, that's it.
I think the key...
temporary, but then you're a scoring unit down. You've lost your chaff unit. Holding your chaff unit until it needs to be used is more important.
Yeah, the key...
Chaff units is great. Having 2 that you use properly is better.
The key thing with chaff and board control is knowing when to commit it. And the other element of board control is that I've been playing a lot of MSU recently. I mean, like 20 drops and like Night Stalkers and stuff. So the amount of threat angles you put out, that's board control as well.
Yeah. And the other one is using individuals not just for charging things, but for engineering charges the way you want them, pushing and pulling things around. Because when you charge an individual, the individual aligns to the unit, but then the unit has to
slide.
It has to slide all the way down.
Yeah,
this goes both ways. You can use your own.
I mean, we've mentioned it a lot, but I'm going to mention it again. If you've not watched the Tom v Tom showdown on Dash 28, go watch it, because Tom Robinson really does give you a masterclass on how to use individuals just to be a pain in the ass.
Yeah, they were a pain in the ass.
How to block so your charges aren't hindered, how to block so you're not getting counter charged back, or you're not getting hit in different angles, and just deciding where you want to be is huge there. So I definitely recommend go checking out the Dash 28 live stream.
And also Surge. Surge is good for board control for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Surge is
being able to cheat
fantastic in this.
Well, exactly. Surge is almost rewriting the rules, isn't it?
Well, no, it is rewriting the rules. It cheats. It is cheating. It's legal cheating.
Yeah.
Oh, and Scout units for Scout. So Wiltfather with Brewer Haste, take it. Good. Everyone takes it. Take it on. Don't bother.
Yeah,
but again, with Scout, all the same principles of Scout apply. Don't just Scout for the sake of it. Have a plan. Have backup and support around it. People throw units forward and then they're out by himself. It's all the same principles each time, isn't it? There needs to be overlap and there needs to be support. You need to know why you're doing something, and if you don't know why that thing is doing the thing, you need to think back and question it again.
Yeah, even a tree-headed dies if you don't support it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, I know we've got more to say, but I am conscious of time and want to keep these relatively close to an hour. So thank you very much to Tom and to Adam. We sort of have a plan for the next episode, which is we're going to take the lists that we've written. So sorry, Adam, you're stuck with yours now, even though you don't like it anymore. And we're going to do a deployment map of how we would deploy those lists. Obviously, it'll be a bit difficult because it's not against a real opponent, but we might just do a few different options of, facing heavy shooting, facing.
Or if a couple of people want to volunteer to players, we'll do it live on QB.
Yeah, we'll just do some play the game and take some screenshots of how deployment.
I don't mean play a game. I mean we'll just do deployment.
Just do the deployment side of it. Yeah. Look at this, make it up on the fly as we go.
Because then we don't get to see what we're playing against beforehand. So we can adapt how we adapt to that list. So if we want to have 4 volunteers, let's go for it.
Yeah, I'll just deploy against you. I'll write perfect counters to all your lists.
That's what I mean. That's why we can't do it, because all of us are gamey fuckers, and we will write a list that counters, even if we don't mean to. We will, because none of us know how to write a balanced list.
You have a balance. Mine's balanced.
I do. I've not had a single list nerfed yet. I'm the nice Northern King. So anyway, thank you very much, everybody. If anyone has any questions and wants to appear on the what do we even call it, the Royal Council, do stick it in the comments, stick it on Facebook. Do like, share, subscribe, all the usual stuff that I have to say at the end of the YouTube video.
Do the social media. Do it.
Do the social media things.
Give us a like, hit the bell. Give us a like, hit subscribe, hit the bell. What else do you have to say? Let's do that.
Give us a hug.
Do we have Twitter?
No, we don't have Twitter.
Anyway,
we're off. Thank you very much, everybody.
Bye-bye. Well, they might be off.